Hello. Our last book for this week is called Daisy Comes Home by Jan Brett, and it's going to be along the same theme as what Bootsy Barker Bites and um, along with sticking up for yourself and sticking up for others, especially animals and things that can't explain to us how they're feeling. So it's all about being a good role model, and let's see what happens in this story. Before I start reading, I want you to think about where this story takes place. So if you said China, you are correct. This story takes place in China. So let's read Daisy Comes Home. Look over the garden wall and you will see the 6 happiest hens in China. They live in Mimi's sandy yard by the Li River, where they lay brown eggs every day for Mimi to sell at the market. But it was not always this way. Once upon a time, the smallest hen, the one Mimi calls Daisy, was picked on by all the others. This is hard to imagine because Mimi was known far and wide for her happy hens. She gave them treats, she put fresh hay in their nests, she gave them baths when they fell in black mud, and when she called goo 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 goo, all the hens would run to her as fast as their legs could carry them. Even Mimi's egg baskets were painted with big red characters that read, "Happy Hens," and she tried to make it so. What do you notice in the illustrations so far? If you noticed that our author puts special illustrations up here in the corners and down here in the corner, great job. That is something to definitely pay attention to while I read this story. But every night when it was time to roost the hen house, the other hens picked on Daisy. They fluffed up their feathers and crowded her off the perch. They jostled her until, peck, one or the other pushed her and thump, off she fell. Then the hens tucked their heads into their feathers and went to sleep, while poor little Daisy was stuck below on the damp mud floor, shivering and cold until morning. What do you think is going to happen while the other hens and Mimi are sleeping? One day it rained all day, and the hens stayed inside. When it got dark, they flew up to their perch, except for Daisy. She had had enough of pushy hens and cold, damp floors. She went outside to find a place to spend the night. Down on the riverbank she spied one of the market baskets. She snuggled in and fluffed up her feathers to stay warm. Daisy was sleeping and didn't see the river creeping up the bank from all the rain. And when the water reached her happy hen's basket, she didn't feel it float out onto the river. But when the basket started tipping and bobbing, Daisy woke up. She peeked out and saw a watery world all around her. The sandy yard, the garden wall, and Mimi's farmhouse looked smaller and smaller as the current carried her down the river. Finally, the basket bumped against a stone where a houseboat was tied up. Scratch, scratch, scraped the basket as the river waves pushed it against the sharp rocks. A dog was sitting up on the deck of the houseboat. When she saw the plump hen bobbing in the basket, she barked and scrambled toward her. Daisy squawked and pecked and beat the air with her wings. It was enough to tip the basket off the rocks, and she floated away just in time. Daisy broke over the Gui Mountains as the basket drifted along the river. Branches brushed against it. Fish swam silently by, and birds flew overhead. Suddenly, Daisy felt a thump. What else do you think is going to happen to Daisy next? If you're looking ahead at these pictures in the corner, that'll help give you a hint. Daisy looked up and saw two big horns and a pair of surprised eyes looking down at her. The basket had drifted into the legs of a great big water buffalo taking a morning drink. The buffalo snorted loudly, scaring Daisy. She flew forward and nipped his furry muzzle and flapped her wings. Daisy scared the water buffalo. He turned and galloped up the bank, scattering the ducks as he ran. His splashes made waves that carried the basket back into the middle of the river. Daisy traveled along all day until her basket was hooked by the roots of a banyan tree, where a troop of red-tailed monkeys lived. The curious monkeys eyed Daisy and climbed down for a closer look. Daisy froze as one monkey crept up to the basket and reached in. Daisy flapped and pecked, nipped and squawked. It startled the monkey, pushed the basket away. It broke loose from the tree and floated on down the river, and Daisy wondered what would happen next. Look at the illustrations and see if you can figure out what's going to happen next. Up ahead, Daisy saw a fisherman with cormorants diving all around his bamboo boat. They were catching fish and taking them to him for a reward. The fisherman felt a soft bump behind him. Thinking it was a cormorant, he reached back and grabbed. How surprised he was to see that he was holding a hen instead of a cormorant. "Finders keepers," he exclaimed. "Little fish, big fish, silver fish, white fish." Bless me. "That's what I sell at the market. But today I will have this tender young chicken." He put a net over the basket and headed to the shore with poor Daisy inside. At home, Mimi had looked all day and all night for her little Daisy. She wasn't in the hen house. She wasn't behind the farmhouse. She couldn't fly over the wall. Where is she? Mimi wondered, worried all the time about what had happened to Daisy. Finally, she knew that she had to go to the market. With a sad feeling, she packed her eggs in their baskets and started on her way. As the baskets swung back and forth, the red characters on the side of her baskets made Mimi feel sadder and sadder. "Happy hens," she said aloud to herself. "What about my Daisy? Where can she be?" Why do you think Mimi uses the name Happy Hens? At the market, Mimi found a place and arranged the eggs in a clean, sweet-smelling straw. All morning, shoppers bought her fresh brown eggs, but she couldn't stop thinking about her little lost hen. Mimi heard a voice calling to her. It was her friend Zhang, yelling from the back of a bike cart. "A fisherman has a happy hen's basket," he shouted. "What?" she called, not understanding what he was saying. "A happy hen's basket," he repeated. "You'd better hurry because he's showing off what's inside." "Daisy!" Mimi shouted. Look and find Daisy in the picture that I'm going to show you, and what danger do you think she is in? And what do you think Daisy's going to do?